Welcome to Sound Off with Linda Kirker. I'm Jay Shepard, sitting in, not for Linda, but with Linda. For the first time, I believe, we're going to have the chance to interview Linda. She's interviewed over the last 12 years, somewhere in the area of 150 people, and I think it's time that we get to ask her the questions. Who is Linda Kirker? Why is she here? And what has she done to get us to this point? One of the things I want to do right off is kind of change the name of the show. It shouldn't be Sound Off with Linda Kirker. It should be Sound Off starring Linda Kirker. So we're gonna move things a little bit differently than they've been done in the past. I want to encourage everyone out there, if you get a chance to call in, do so. Ask Linda the question you've been dying to ask her, and we're going to move forward. And one of the things that you all know is that she is the conservative voice of reason, that she brings to the forefront the questions that a lot of us have been asking. And so we're going to let her expand on some of those and see where it goes. Are you ready, Linda?
Oh, sure I am. Always ready.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about is you are not a native Vermonter. You are a flatlander of some sort, as is my wife and daughters, but I am a native. So tell us how a Jersey girl ends up in Vermont.
Okay, I can do that. And thank you for being here and for suggesting that it was time that I be interviewed. Okay. Well, I grew up in a little German-Dutch community in Midland Park, New Jersey, and went to high school in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, because our little community didn't have its own high school at that time. So we took the train 11 miles every day to Pompton Lakes. And then when I graduated, I came up to UVM to the nursing program. And I am a graduate of UVM nursing school. And that's how I got here. And I worked as a nurse for a number of years. And I like variety. One of the beautiful things, Jay, about the nursing profession is that there's a great variety of different types of nursing that you can do. And I like that a lot. I did work in the hospital on orthopedics when I first graduated. I actually went back to nursing school after a divorce. And I hadn't completed, I got married in my junior year. And then I got sick and I was in the hospital and the doctor said, "You're not going back." I was covered in red rashes. I think it was nerves, but anyway, long story short, 15 years later after the divorce, I re-enrolled in nursing school part-time. I got a 20-hour-a-week job, and I had my nose in a textbook most of the time, and took care of my children. So I had a busy time.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud and happy that I accomplished that and that I have two great adult children. And the nursing profession was rewarding. As I said, I worked on orthopedics in the hospital, and then where did I go next? I went to work for a general surgeon, Dr. Bunker in Essex, a good friend. And then I went to work for a gastroenterologist in his office, two doctors there. I even did the medical transcription because I could type. And where did I go from there? I went to Williston and I worked in a general practice, 5 doctors. I was the evening nurse. And so I had to do everything there, EKGs, drawing blood, histories, you name it. And then I went, for some reason, I went into the blood program, the Red Cross blood program in Burlington. I don't know why I was in there, but I went in for some reason. And this woman I knew approached me and she said, "Hi, Linda." She was working there in the place where they provide food for people after donating. And she said, "Where are you working these days?" And I told her, and she said, "Are you happy there?" And I said, yeah, kind of, and she said, well, we're looking for an RN at the Red Cross Blood Program. How about you have an interview? So why not? So I did, and I ended up working there for 15 years.
Wow.
And retired from there. It was a great job for me. I went from drawing blood to running blood drives, and then I was asked if I would consider becoming a recruitment, what they call executive. And so I did that, and it gave me so much flexibility. I was responsible for all of the blood drives in northern Vermont and northern New Hampshire, and I got to travel when I needed to and meet people. And Dartmouth Hitchcock was one of my accounts, and I got a chance to get on the radio. Maybe that prepared me for this.
Maybe.
I don't know, but just to let people know that your blood donation is very important, how many people it can help, and how to prepare yourself to donate. And so it was a great job. I loved it. And I love people anyway. So
Well, when I first met you, you were working at the Red Cross. I've known you for a little over 20 years, I think now.
I think it's about that.
And one of the things that drew me to you was that compassion and that caring for people that is relatable to that whole nursing program and the nursing degree and your willingness to go out and help people. And when we met, you were living in Essex Junction, and you were running for the state legislature.
True.
And I had known you a little bit before that, and I had two young daughters at the time. One was 10, one was 7. And there weren't a lot of female role models in terms of politics and leadership in Vermont, especially on the conservative side. So we kind of gravitated a little bit towards you and did a little bit of work in your campaign, did
Yes,
some
you
door-to-door. And so I've always been intrigued by the fact that you came out of this nursing program and working to help people regularly. What was the impetus? What made you say, I need to serve in a different way, that I need to help the voters of Essex Junction and the voters of Vermont to get things done? So tell me what that was like when you transitioned into the political world.
Well, let me give you a little bit of background there, Jay. I had met a gentleman with whom I had attended UVM many years before. And he also was divorced. And he actually worked in the Reagan and Bush administrations as a political appointee in a few different agencies. And he had moved back up to Vermont and was living in Stowe. And friends from the college days, well, David was his name, and he was a huge UVM hockey fan. He would drive up from Washington, D.C. to see the games. And so he was up in Maine, and another couple, friends of both of ours from college, were up there too, and they were chatting about friends from the college days. And Jane was the woman in the couple, and she mentioned my name. And she said, "Do you remember Linda?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I remember Linda." And so he says to her, "Why don't the four of us go out for brunch?" Well, anyway, long story short, we ended up going out for brunch, and we ended up getting together. He was such a fine man, a gentleman, and very, very smart and fun to talk with, and just a delightful man. And he ended up, after a short time, asking me to marry him. And we were at Bove's restaurant.
Been there many times in
Yeah.
Burlington, a landmark that's
Yes.
no longer there.
Oh, that's a shame,
It
because
is.
those things that we used to count on, But anyway, I couldn't believe after such a short time I said yes, but I had the sense that it was right. And so we set a wedding date for August 3rd. And on June 3rd, we found out he had a brain tumor. And so it was inoperable. And he said, I can't do this to you, Linda. And I said, honey, we're in this together. There's no way I'm walking out on you now when you need me the most. We're going to focus on life. We're going to do the best we can with it. And that's that. So we did the best we could. We had some fun. And my nursing background came in very handy. He wanted to go to a nursing home or a facility, and I said, no way, I'm taking care of you. So we only got 9 months of marriage.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? He blessed my life. I'm grateful that he was in my life. I loved him very much, and he's been gone. It'll be 23 years in March.
Wow.
Yep. And so I just keep moving along and doing my thing and filling my life the best way I know how. And that includes, being involved in organizations and with people and so forth. So to answer your question, I got off on a tangent, of course, but David was the one who, there was a big to-do in the town-village scenario there about whether the village should separate from the town and everything. And the trustees had asked me to head up a committee to do the research for the village. And so I did that. And David was there at the time, and he said, Linda, you need to run for the Senate. And I said, are you kidding me? Me? I never had thought about it. And so he planted the seed, and then after he was gone, I said, you know what? Maybe I'll run for the House, because there's a need, and I wanted to do something for the people in my community and hopefully for the state. So I ran, and the first time I lost by 41 or 42 votes. Of course, a friend of mine used to say, numbers are for losers, Linda. The numbers don't matter,
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't forget that. And there was a scenario that went on that might have affected the outcome, like the town and the village. Who are the people who work on the elections? The boards of civil authority.
Right.
They had their tables in the same location side by side, and I'm told friends of mine were coming out of the election site and said, Linda, I couldn't find your name on the ballot.
Oh, they're at the wrong.
Well, no, the village folks apparently ran out of ballots, so somebody from the town said, oh, we have plenty. Things happen.
There's no such thing as voter fraud. I mean, haven't we been hearing that on CNN and MSNBC, that doesn't happen? And if it is, it must have been the Russians that did that, not the town.
Oh, I see.
That must have been it.
Well, I'll tell you, I believe things happen for a reason. And I guess I wasn't meant to have that position at that time. So when the next 2 years went by, I ran again, and we kind of blew them away. And it was I ran twice, and I was in there for 4 years.
Well, I think that's a wonderful example. And one of the things that, as we recruit people to run, it's real important to think about it as a 4-year run. Because the first time around, people need to get to know you.
Yes.
And you need to know how to connect with people on a retail basis and go door to door. And it's a very, very difficult thing.
It's a lot of work. I have seen recently some of the legislators in Franklin County, when it was time to get out and go door to door, I saw them out there working hard, some of our Republicans, and they got elected. People need to know who you are and what you stand for. I always say to voters, before you give someone your vote, if you have specific issues that are of major concern to you, that you should approach that candidate, and don't tell them what you view or what you think, but ask them where they stand on specific issues and let them tell you. Don't go up and say, I want you to do X, Y, or Z. You go up and you say, where do you stand on this issue? And then if you sense they're hemming and hawing a little bit and they don't want to give you a straight answer, you take that into account.
Yeah. One of the things that I see a lot in local politics especially is local reps that have been elected for a number of years that feel the voters know them. And they don't have to work as hard as they used to. They don't go door to door and they don't listen the way they did their first time out or their second time out. And then they suddenly feel as though they were blindsided and they start posting the blame on President Trump or blaming someone else and not taking responsibility for the fact that they need to define themselves and not allow people to define them the way they want to. Now, you can't be defined by the national party. You can't be defined by who the governor is.
No.
Just because they're part of your party doesn't allow people to define you in a way that's not you.
You have to present you and where you stand and what your beliefs and your philosophy are in the issues that are of importance to you on behalf of the people. Right. Yes, absolutely.
And one of the other questions I wanted to ask you, and there's a lot of people will always say to each other, you should run, all of that. Like you said, it's very difficult to run. You have to put the effort in. Tell me about being after you were elected. Tell me about what it was like to go to Montpelier as a freshman legislator and trying to make a difference and having some compassion for things that are right in your values and how they were affected while you were down there and what that whole thing was in the early 2000s.
Well, I can tell you the first day I drove to Montpelier to sit in the legislature.
Not nervous at all?
I don't think I was nervous. I looked up at the Capitol building and I said, oh my God, I'm going to be working here. What a gift. What an honor. And I'll never forget the feeling. It was just so awesome. And then, of course, when you get into the building, into the State House, and you have to familiarize yourself with it, and you meet a whole lot of new people that you never knew before, and you need to learn about how things work. And that takes a little doing, but you also have this sense of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And it's being a people person that I am. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting everyone there, but you can sense the division even then. People are coming from different places, different viewpoints and how things ought to progress, how they should be done, what's best for the state, what's best for the people. And the longer you're there, the more wise and informed you become about how that falls into place. But I felt that things were very respectful in those days. There weren't people barging in and carrying signs or, making a fuss because they weren't happy with something. That should not be allowed.
Yeah.
But I understand it's happened. So I think there should be some security, and people need to respect the people who represent us and the location, the building itself. I don't know if I answered your question to your satisfaction.
Yeah, you did. And I think there's a lot of what you're saying has come to where we are today, and that whole bullying effect that's going around. And when you look at college campuses where they're not allowing people of differing views to speak out, it's a bullying mentality that is kind of new, that's kind of developed in the last few years. And I don't know whether it's because of the 24-hour news cycle or people feel empowered in the social media that they can say whatever they want on social media and not feel any backlash on that. So, what's going on in college campuses today, in my opinion, is pretty atrocious.
I concur. It makes me very sad. Apparently, the young people have not learned or are not learning, not all of them, but it seems many of them, to be respectful of other people's viewpoints and of our country, of even the college where they are. Just recently, at a college football game, you had these masses of people out on the field so that the game was interrupted. Are you kidding me?
Right.
That's total and utter disrespect. And that really needs to stop. I learned respect when I was just a little tot at home, little child.
Yeah, that entitlement, I think it's an entitlement view at the world that I'm entitled to do whatever I want without repercussions. And I think we've spoken in the past about accepting personal responsibility and how important that is.
You learn that, you start learning that at home. And what I've seen, sadly, is that the schools are trying more and more to be parents, taking over. Since when do children have the opportunity for breakfast, lunch, and some children a meal after school? What is that? When I was young, and I realized that was a long time ago, and certainly society was different, very different, and families were different, but I made myself a tuna fish or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I brought an apple or an orange or a peach, put it in my little lunch box, and went off to school and bought a little, like a pint of milk.
Right.
For 20 cents or whatever it was.
Push the straw through the hole in the top.
Yeah, and that was then. And now you and I are paying for all of these lunches and other meals. You know, at the cost of living in this state in particular has gone very high, and people are leaving. And the people who can afford to leave are probably people who are paying a fairly decent tax to support all of these things that are now being provided by the taxpayers. And I think there needs to be a very strong assessment of what we're doing. I have a lot of thoughts about what's happening in the schools. I've gotten into them on this show before, and I probably don't want to go into depth on them now, but I feel badly for the children because the less that we expect them to behave, the more they're going to get away with misbehaving. And parents out there are a lot of good parents, but there are also some families that are not doing their jobs with their children. And that's sad for the children and for society.
Well, I think one of the things I see in the school system and at the state level in education is they want to take the family away from the children and put it with the school systems. You know, it's tough enough when we first started, I'm 63 years old. When I first started, there wasn't even kindergarten. Now they want kids to go into the government system at 2 years old and have more and more control over the education and the learning of that child. And there's a big difference in my world, and I don't know if you agree, but there's a big difference between being schooled and being educated.
Absolutely.
That a lot of education takes place in the home with role models and teaching children right and wrong and teaching values, whereas now they want children going to school earlier and earlier to teach government values.
Amen.
What are your thoughts about that?
I am with you 100%. I feel that the job of parenting is for parents, and I realize that not every child has the benefit of being in a solid family structure. And I know that it isn't easy to raise children and to work like I did. That's why you need that foundation, that everybody in the family, the rules of the family and the rules of behavior need to be set at a young age. Because children disrupting the classroom for everybody affects everybody's opportunity to learn. And I really feel that, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to me, because the schools are doing what they're doing under Common Core, which I feel is a real disaster for the teachers and for the students and for the taxpayers. When we, the taxpayers, are paying an average of $22,000 per pupil for Common Core, forget it. I would like, if I were, I always say this, if I were queen, and we all know I'm not.
Now, weren't you prom queen, though?
Oh, stop. Yes, I was prom queen.
Okay, so you're queen for a short time, but not permanently?
Queen for a short time. But I would audit the Department of Education. I would audit the Agency of Human Services, and probably a few others, to get down to the nitty-gritty about what we're getting for our money. And what is the benefit to the people at large who are being served, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a lot of us that go around talking about what should be done and how we can help and how we can make a difference. And a lot of us sit at home and complain and whine and all those kind of things, myself not excluded in that. But you've actually jumped in to try to make a difference in the schools. Now, you've been involved in the Liberty camps, where you're reaching out to children in the formative years and making a difference in their life to kind of fill that gap that the schools haven't been. Can you tell me a little bit about Liberty camps and what you're doing in the schools?
Well, the Ethan Allen Institute, with Rob Roper, the president, is very active in constructing the format for the camp. What I have done is the legwork to set it up, recruit, to get children to participate, and put together, find the location for the event, put together the food, for the breaks and everything, and get the word out about the camp so that parents can get their children to come. And I love it, and I think that the students are really enjoying it. It's something, because they need to learn about the founding principles of the United States of America. I think today that's missing in our education system. It seems to be more important to teach global studies than to teach the true founding of our nation. With personal responsibility and accountability, as well as freedom and rights and opportunities. It all fits together for it to work. And you were mentioning or alluding to the fact that we sit at home and we complain, but I am begging the people out there to start standing up, working together, and trying to make some change. The children are the future of our country. And if they don't learn about why this country was created the way it was, where they came from under King George III, okay, the tyrant, they couldn't practice their own religion. And actually, speaking of religion, there are people today who are all out against Christianity. And yet we have 3,000 Muslim mosques in this country that are known. So we need to practice our religion. That's another way to teach children to be responsible and respectful.
I have a little going into the freedom of religion, and I have to say good things since I'm on the national committee about our president and what he's done for religious freedom, religious liberty, what he's done to show respect for religion, regardless of what your religion is.
Yes.
It's important that we get out there and we not be afraid to talk about our beliefs and who God is and how it plays in and how it became a Judeo-Christian nation and built upon the principles of values and personal beliefs, and that we're all here because of our Creator.
Yes.
And little things that kind of irritate me that I want to go off a little bit. I know this is time for me to interview you, but I didn't get a monologue at the beginning.
By the way, folks, Jay, it's probably on the screen, but Jay is the vice chair of the Republican National Committee in Washington, D.C. And I'm very proud of you, and I'm happy that we're friends, and I respect you have a job, and yet you go down to Washington and try to make things better for our country. I agree with you about our president. I have a list of things like this that he has accomplished, or he and his administration have accomplished for the people of this country, and you rarely hear it on the liberal media. And it's very disturbing, because people need to know what is being accomplished. Absolutely.
And every month I get a list of accomplishments. It gets longer and longer. It's 12 pages, single space typed. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was getting away from religion a little bit that this country has done. And I believe in the whole thing of be not afraid to talk about your values. And I think the respect and where I am, quite honestly, nationally, was stirred up and instigated a little bit by you 20 years ago. So, to have those mentors and have those people, and I'd like to know a little bit about some of the mentors that you've had. But going back to the whole religious freedom thing, and I just want to ramble a little bit to get this out of my system, is I hear all the time, somebody's ill on social media. And on Facebook, people will say, can you pray for my uncle who's not doing well and all of that. And I see things where it says, I want to send my positive thoughts or my positive vibes to you. And I'm never sure how that exactly works and how they do that. So in order to send out positive vibes to help somebody recover, I've always thought that number one, you have to be a superhero of some sort with some superpowers out there that you can send these vibes through the airwaves and get them somewhere. Or number two, that you believe you're kind of like God and that you have those powers. When the power of prayer and the power of believing in God and that we are created beings by God has kind of slipped away a little bit. And our country was founded on those principles, one nation under God,
yes,
endowed by our Creator.
Yes.
And those are things that are no longer taught in schools. And I think what your involvement is in the Liberty camps and all about talking about our founding fathers, that they weren't tyrants. They weren't evil men.
No.
They weren't all the bad things that
are being taught today.
Right.
And that people who are, for some reason, not liking this country, I think it's phenomenal that in this country you have the freedom to work, to progress in life, to become successful. Of course, now there's all of this anti-rich thing, Bernie Sanders, we're going to get those billionaires, they're going to pay for this and that and the other thing. When you chastise or speak out against those who are successful, and I'm not saying they're all wonderful people, I don't know, okay? You have honorable people in all segments of life and non-honorable, but when you take away the incentive for people to excel, then everybody's like on an even playing field, but government control. Okay? Socialism is government control of your life. The more government does for you, the less control you have over your own life. I told that I've been blessed, Jay, twice to speak at one of the schools. And I mentioned to the students that the more that government does for you, the less control you have over your life. And when I got the 40 letters in the mail thanking me, and when can you come back? Please come back, even if you just talk about your life, because I used my life as an example for what happens in life. And I said, life's going to smack you in the face sometime, and you're going to have to decide, am I going to sink or am I going to swim? I said, I've always chosen to swim. And life has been tough sometimes. And for me to get through it, I had to swim, which means to work through it. You know, you can give up or you can get up. And
I like that.
I just made that up. I can't believe it.
Give up or get up.
But the children are hungry to hear about life. Mm-hmm. I told them that from the time I was a little tyke, I had a little job to do at home. My mother was loving, but she was tough. And I bless her every day of my life. She's a role model, as well as my dad, who was the easygoing. You know, he would help me with my algebra and my U.S. history, which was my favorite course all through school. And the precursor, I guess, to what I've done with some of my life with the U.S. history. But when I was about 11, my friends and I liked to go on Saturday to the next town over to go to the matinee movie. But in order for Linda to go, I had to earn my 50 cents allowance. So Friday night...
Where's that white privilege you should have had?
Oh, please, there is no white privilege. There's work.
Right.
There's no white privilege. And I'm so sick of hearing about, you know, all this moaning and groaning. It's not about your skin color. It's not about privilege. It's about putting your life together through work and believing in yourself and not expecting somebody else to take care of everything for you, and then being upset because somebody has more than you. Well, work a little harder, or maybe that person has more talent or abilities, then good for them. Look at them and say, wow, look at that. Look what that person accomplished.
Yeah.
I just lost my way here. About earning my allowance.
Yeah.
So Friday night, my mother would give me my to-do list. I told the students this. I said, you can better believe that Linda was up bright and early on a mission. And they all laughed. I said, because I had to get my work done, and not only get it done, I had to get it done to my mother's satisfaction. So about 11 years old, I had to dust all the furniture in the living room. My mom, being who she was, she walks in, doesn't say a word. She goes, okay? I said, what do you think the message was? If you're going to do a job, do it well, do it right. Mm-hmm. Or why bother doing it at all? If you're just going to slough off, do it right. Those students absolutely appreciated. I read through those letters. I sat on my couch. I read through them twice. And I wrote a letter to the teacher who invited me and asked him to share it with the students. I told them, your life is going to be what you make it. And it's going to be making wise decisions and working hard. And there was one other thing which escapes me at the moment, but not giving up, you know?
Right.
And we owe it to them to share with them about life. Life isn't always easy. One of the students said, now I know, in his letter, now I know that when life gets tough, I have to keep going. And I went, whew. You know, and more of us should get into the schools.
If we're invited and allowed. In some areas,
Well-
we're not invited.
Well-
we're not allowed because teachers know best.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to the first teacher who invited me, to both of them actually, different years, because he knew of my conservatism, and he was a Democrat. But I met him in town one day, and we stood there on the sidewalk talking, and I said, you know, I would love to just be a fly on the wall in your classroom sometime. And he said, better than that, why don't you come in and speak with them? I said, what? So I prepared, you know, I really give him a huge amount of credit and respect. And so I had my opportunity. I'd love to do it again. The children were very responsive. And I think that more of us should do that.
And I think that it's a great example of what's gone wrong, that we're not having conversations anymore on both sides.
Well, that's true. You know, it seems that I have some friends who are Democrats, long-term friends, and they don't want to hear what I have to say. So when we get together, no talk of politics.
Which is a shame, because
It is.
you start, I had an old boss who said to me, he was a Republican, and he said, you know, I believe that everybody in Vermont's a Republican. And I said, how can that be? He says, every party I go to, everyone's a Republican. And what we've done is we've divided ourselves so that we're only going to have friends on Facebook. We're only going to have reach out on Twitter. We're only going to watch Fox News, or we're only going to watch MSNBC. And we divide ourselves and we say, you know, I don't want to hear it anymore if you don't agree with me. And there's no growth in that.
That's true. It's also divide and conquer.
Yes.
And this country is too divisive. We need, you know what? There was an article, a letter to the editor, not a letter, an editorial written in the local paper, within the year, and it said Republicans should come to the middle. And I've always wanted to respond to that. I haven't, because I'm so blooming busy. No excuses, Linda. But I thought about that, and I said, you know what? Sure, let's come to the middle. But the middle is the U.S. Constitution, the principles of this nation. And if you're walking down the middle of the road without that, you're in dangerous territory.
But isn't the Constitution a living document that needs to be changed at the whim of the people and
No.
interpreted in any way that we want to, and that the Supreme Court can just make up their own? What's right now wasn't right 250 years ago. That,
No.
you know, haven't we learned anything?
For many, many years, the people of this nation worked with the principles within the Constitution. And now people want to throw it away, tear it up, because they don't want any restrictions. But life is about restrictions. When you go into a job, a place of business, and you have a job there, I'm assuming there are rules, and there are expectations for your productivity and how you treat the customers or whatever, or don't expect to work there. You know, there are rules in life.
Yeah.
And it's critically important that our young people learn about the founding documents, the founders, and why they created, what they came from, and why they created something different to protect the people and to give them opportunities and freedoms and rights.
Yeah. Well, so we hear these terms, American exceptionalism, and what makes us different and what makes us better or what doesn't make us better. And I personally believe that there's greatness in America that is that comes directly from our founding documents, including the Constitution. That doesn't mean that we as individuals are any better or any worse than anyone else in the world. But it's our system of laws and our belief that no one is more equal than others that makes us great. Yeah, thoughts on that?
I think it's the founding, or I'll take away the word founding, how do
Guiding principles?
Well, yeah, you can say that. The guiding principles of one country versus another is their respect for the people. I want to say something about this. I've probably said before on the show, but there's a big difference between a pure democracy and a republic. A pure democracy is when the people have an opportunity to vote, and whatever group wins or individual wins, the people have no idea what they're going to do because there's no guiding document. In a democratic constitutional republic, the people also have the right to vote, but whoever wins is obliged to abide by the founding principles of the country, which all the citizens should know and stand up for. Okay? So you have the pure democracy over here where you have no idea what you're going to get. But in a republic, a constitutional republic, there are rules. There's a huge difference. And socialism is not about what's best for the people. It's government control, and everybody needs to know that.
Well, going a little further, thoughts about socialism, which is the guidepost to communism. And it talks about government control. But it's more than that. If you look at where communism and socialism has taken place in the world, whether it's Soviet Union, under
Khrushchev or Lenin or
Stalin. Well, I asked a group of people, and I think the last survey I said half the people in this country graduated from school have never heard of Joseph Stalin and how many millions and millions of people he murdered.
Yeah.
We look at Mao in China. We look at Maduro down in Venezuela, and all these people that talk about socialism and talk about government run. It's really not government run. It's elite leaders that live in a different world that have extreme power over the people and over the government. So it's not like we've got this collective voice that's running government. What we've got is a few elite leaders that are running it. And when I look at some of the leaders today that are talking about their democratic socialism, they don't want to live within the guidelines of that themselves. They want to be in charge of it. And I don't know how many democratic socialists own 3 homes. I don't know how you can...
Bernie.
Oh, I guess we know someone.
Yeah.
But what they're talking about is what's right for them. And you look at some of the wealthy elite that believe in the socialism because they believe that they will be the leaders of that. Stalin never lived as a peasant. Stalin was never involved in the excesses of government and the control of government because he was in control of government. And so when you look at these leaders that talk about socialism and how wonderful it is, it might be wonderful for them.
But not for the people at large.
Not for the people at large.
No.
And I think we're missing some of that. We're missing some of that story. And when you talk about erasing history and you're not going back and showing how these failed programs have worked and how we can make it better, a bad system is a bad system and you can't make it better. You know, we used to have outhouses in this country. You know, making it a 2-seater instead of a 1-seater certainly didn't make things better. There had to be a way of evolving and making things better, and we're not doing that as much.
It's frightening because there's so much disruption. I firmly believe that there are people like George Soros, as one example, who are taking their billions of dollars and they are riling up people. They're trying to create divisiveness, and I believe that they're paying. You know, this march on Women's March a while back on Washington, whatever. I took a look at that scenario on TV, and there was a big stage, and there were all kinds of electronics and lights and everything. And I thought, oh, these women, how did they get all that? And how did this huge group of women get there? They were bused. Mm-hmm. So who's paying for all that? Trying to disrupt things.
That's what it is. And when you look at the whole socialist movement and you look at where it's come, it's never helped the people.
Nope.
And to know the greatness of America is based on the fact that it's all about the people. It's about the voice and the strength of the people at the local level. And we get further and further away from local. We get more and more mired in people making decisions that are unelected.
Yep.
And I think we see that a lot in Washington now. All the people that believe they are guaranteed a job for life and that they don't have to follow our elected leaders. And, you know, we recently saw the whole chain of command, and whether you agree or disagree with people losing their job, when the commander-in-chief directs an order and you don't follow it, that's not what this country is about. So it's unelected officials trying to make decisions that they are not in a position to make, and we need to change that.
Well, there's a government structure. And again, there are rules for doing your job. And if you don't follow the rules, you know, I firmly believe that there are a number of people still in government from the previous administration who are trying to stir things up. And this whole scenario with Adam Schiff and impeachment, are you kidding me? I look at him and I say to myself, oh my God.
Right.
I can't even bear to look at him.
And when these 250 Democrats in Congress have going to be the ones believing they have the right to decide who our president is?
That's the people's job.
So you and I, in November of 2020, will vote on impeachment. It'll be our job to decide whether this president stays in office or not. It's less than a year away. And for them to believe they have the almighty power to take our votes away from us?
I know, the people voted for the president.
Right.
And these people who are, they have no basis. There's no proof of any misdoing. There's no basis for this impeachment trial. And at the same time that they're doing all of this impeachment business, they're neglecting their work for the people of this country, like building the wall to protect our nation. If you look at the founding principles, one of the major responsibilities of our government is to protect our country, to protect our people, to build a military, etc. And when you have an invasion into your country and you can't protect the people, there's something very wrong there.
Right. I heard our Congressman Welch say one day that, you know, in Congress we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Well, perhaps they can, but why don't we have the USMCA trade agreements ratified? Everyone's for it.
It's sitting there.
It's sitting there, and it's going to make a major difference with employment and jobs and helping those in need of jobs and work in this country. Where's the infrastructure bill? Where are we going to help build our roads and our highways and bridges and some of our schools?
Where's the budget?
Where's the budget? So walk and chew gum, yeah, you might be able to do that, but you can't make a mockery of our Constitution by trying to impeach somebody and get the work of the people done at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because there's no overwhelming demand from the people that we impeach this president because there's no impeachable offenses.
That's right.
So don't tell us that you can get things done. Show us that you can get things done, And you brought up the wall. People want it. It's not getting done.
Absolutely, the people want it. And, you know, I'm concerned to an extent about the voting system. I don't want people voting who are not citizens of this country, legal citizens of this country. And when you have motor voter where you can register and you have online registration, it's very frightening that there would be integrity in the voting system.
All right. I mean, we've seen in voting districts where absentee ballots are found days after the election that change elections.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do when you can vote online? And that's what they want to do in some states. And you're seeing things like 16-year-olds being allowed to vote.
Nope.
You're talking about...
They're not of legal age.
Right. You're talking about people who shouldn't even be in this country voting.
I know.
So you're absolutely right, Linda.
We have to get the hammer and make sure that the people of this country are protected and that our voting system is protected and our children are protected from misinformation, that they are taught about our country so that we can maintain what the founders provided for us that has been so great for many years. And this country, we had Indians. It went, you know, with the founders, they mixed up together and shared food and everything. And yeah, there were issues with the blacks in certain places in history, but we're so great a country that we worked through those things, and that those people have every same right as citizens that anybody else does, regardless of your skin color.
Right.
If you're a legal citizen, you have the same rights as everybody else.
I feel very bad that we had this opportunity to ask you a lot of questions.
You do.
And that I spoke too much and too often.
No.
Because what you have in the gift that you've been giving goes on and on, Lynn. And you know, we meet at some of the Republican meetings, and you're a voice in the room that understands the history and how everything relates to each other. And I want to give you an opportunity before we get done. We have about 2.5 minutes left. If there's anything you want to say, anything that we missed that is important to bring out, especially, and what are your thoughts and your hopes of the future?
Well, I feel very blessed. Life hasn't been easy. It's lonely, like a lot of other people who have been living alone for a long time. But I choose not to feel sorry for myself. I choose to fill my life. I love people. I love little children. I just I'm blessed in many ways, and I try to fill my life with positive things. I try to, when my last breath comes, Jay, I need to know that I tried to make a positive difference. That's what guides me. And yeah, there are trials and tribulations. There are good days and bad days like anybody else. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to try to help to keep this country together. In my tiny little way, there are many people who do much more than I do. You do, obviously, your share, and then some. And I'm grateful to have this job. I have a family that I love dearly. I have great friends. Without friends, life wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. I mean, we're obviously 2 days away from Thanksgiving, and I think it's really nice to talk about the things that you're thankful for. And I think I feel that from you every time I meet you, that you're thankful for being in this country and thankful for your friends and your relatives and
Absolutely.
all those that make a difference. So the last,
including you.
The last question I have for you is, are you going to run for governor or for the U.S. Senate?
No. The answer is no.
No hedging at all on that?
I'll tell you what, I've thought about if I were younger, I might give it a shot.
Well, I think all of you out there that are watching this, call in and tell Linda that she is younger.
Yeah, right.
You're 16 years younger than my mother.
Oh, yeah.
And she has a
God
lot of
bless her.
opinions as well.
God bless
So
her.
I think we're ending the show very shortly. Next show, Linda will be back in this seat and running a show the way it should be run. And it's just been so exciting for me to have this opportunity to talk to you, Linda, and to make a difference. And thank you very much for everything you do.
Oh, well, thank you for everything that you do, Jay, and thank you for offering to interview me.
It's been wonderful. So
Thank
you very much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy your family and friends, and remember how grateful we are. Good night. See you again next week.